Strange discoveries. Ethan staggered to his feet, the sand still clinging to his clothes, and stared at the jungle that loomed ahead. The trees were massive, their roots twisting like the coils of giant serpents, and vines dangled thick as ropes. The air hummed with insects, and the calls of unseen creatures echoed through the green maze. He licked his dry lips. His throat ached from seawater, but the sound of running water reached his ears. He followed it, pushing through ferns taller than himself, until he found a stream glimmering in the sunlight. Kneeling, Ethan cupped his hands and drank greedily. The water was cool, sweeter than any he had ever tasted. But as he bent closer, something caught his eye. The riverbed shimmered. Silver light flickered beneath the current, as though the stones themselves were glowing. He frowned, running his hand through the water. The pebbles were ordinary to the touch, yet the shimmer remained, flowing with the current like liquid moonlight. "This place," Ethan whispered. "It isn't natural." He pressed on, following the compass. The brass disc was warm in his palm, the needle fixed firmly on a direction that made no sense. It wasn't north, and yet it refused to waver. Something was pulling it deeper into the jungle. The deeper he went, the stranger the island became. Enormous flowers with petals as wide as shields opened and closed as though breathing. Their centers glowed faintly, lighting the shadows like lanterns. Birds with wings of blue fire darted between the branches, and a lizard with 3 glowing eyes scuttled across his path before vanishing into the undergrowth. Ethan's sailor's heart, hardened by years at sea, felt both awe and unease. Every step seemed to take him further from the world he knew. By late afternoon, he stumbled into a clearing and froze. At its center stood a stone pillar, worn and cracked with age. Carvings covered its surface. Figures of warriors with wings stretched wide, spears raised high, all kneeling before a sun symbol carved at the top. The same 3 arrows beneath the sun glowed faintly, as though alive. Ethan's pulse quickened. Slowly, he pulled the compass from his pocket. The sun symbol on the pillar matched the design etched into the compass lid. His grandfather's words echoed in his memory. "Keep it with you, Ethan. One day, it will guide you to your destiny." But how could his grandfather have known of this island? Before he could puzzle it out, the bushes around the clearing rustled. Ethan spun, heart racing. Out stepped figures. Dozens of them, their bodies painted with red and black markings, feathers braided into their hair, and spears gleaming in their hands. They moved silently, surrounding him. Ethan raised his hands slowly. "I don't mean any harm," he said, voice hoarse. The tallest of them, a man with a necklace of carved bones, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, scanning Ethan from head to toe. Then his gaze fell on the compass. He froze, his face darkening with shock or recognition. The warriors murmured among themselves. Some pointed at the compass, others muttered words Ethan didn't understand. The leader spoke in a low, commanding tone, his hand trembling slightly as he gestured toward the compass. Though Ethan couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear. They had seen it before, and whatever it meant, it was dangerous. Ethan swallowed hard, clutching the compass tighter. He had survived the storm and the sea. But now he realized his greatest challenge was only beginning. The storm. The sea had always been Ethan's closest friend, and his fiercest rival. From the time he was a boy, he had loved the sound of waves crashing on the shore, the call of gulls overhead, the salty sting of the wind. But on that night, the ocean was no friend. It was a wild beast, and Ethan was caught in its fury. The sky had been strange all day. Too quiet, too heavy. Clouds gathered on the horizon like an army preparing for battle. Still, the captain of the wave cutter had insisted they press on. They had cargo to deliver, and time was money. Ethan, the youngest sailor aboard, had done as he was told. But deep down, he had felt unease in his chest. By nightfall the storm struck. The first gust of wind nearly tore the sails in two. Then the waves began to rise. Great black walls of water that slammed against the deck, sending men sprawling. Rain pelted them like nails, and thunder cracked so loud it rattled Ethan's bones. "Reef the sails!" Captain Rowan roared, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Ethan grabbed a rope, his hands burning as he pulled, struggling to secure the sail. Lightning flashed, turning the night into a violent painting of white and black. For a moment Ethan saw the faces of his crewmates, grim, terrified, yet determined. They were sailors, but even seasoned sailors could be broken by a storm like this. A wave larger than the rest crashed over the deck, sweeping barrels, ropes, and men into the sea. Ethan's grip slipped, his fingers numb from cold and rain. He tried to hold on, but another surge of water slammed into him. "Ethan!" someone shouted. He thought it was the first mate, but the roar of the storm drowned out all else. Then he was airborne, tossed like a rag doll, before the ocean swallowed him whole. The world became a whirl of black water, salt burning his throat as he fought to breathe. He kicked, flailed, clawed upward. For a heartbeat he broke the surface, gasping, but the sea dragged him under again. Darkness pressed in. His chest burned. His strength faded. The last thing he felt was the cold embrace of the deep. When Ethan opened his eyes, sunlight blinded him. He choked, coughing seawater from his lungs. The storm was gone. The sea was calm now, waves lapping gently against the shore where he lay sprawled. He rolled onto his back, chest heaving. Above him, palm trees swayed in the breeze, and strange birds with bright red wings flitted between branches. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of fruit and flowers. Ethan pushed himself up slowly, his muscles aching. He looked around. The sand stretched in both directions, curving into dense green jungle. The ship was nowhere in sight. No sails, no broken planks, no survivors. Nothing. He was alone. Ethan's hand instinctively went to his pocket. To his surprise, the small brass compass his grandfather had given him years ago was still there, miraculously intact. The needle spun wildly, then stopped, pointing not north but toward the jungle's dark heart. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know if he'd ever find his crew again. But one thing was certain: this island was not ordinary. And his adventure had only just begun. The hidden tribe. The warriors' spears pressed closer, their tips gleaming in the fading light. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He raised his hands higher, trying not to make any sudden moves. "I don't understand you," he said slowly, though he knew the words were useless. "But I'm not here to fight." The leader, tall, broad-shouldered, his body streaked with red paint, studied him in silence. His dark eyes were unreadable, but when they fell again upon the compass in Ethan's hand, something shifted. Not anger, not fear, recognition. The man barked an order. Two warriors moved forward, seizing Ethan's arms. Their grip was iron. Ethan considered struggling, but with 30 spears at his chest, the idea was madness. "All right," he muttered under his breath. "Guess I'm your guest then." They marched him through the jungle, deeper and deeper, until the trees parted to reveal a hidden village. Huts of woven palm leaves stood in neat rows, fires flickered in stone pits, and children stopped their play to stare at the strange foreigner dragged into their midst. Ethan's eyes widened. He had sailed to dozens of ports, seen tribes on distant islands, but never one like this. Every person wore markings of red, black, and gold across their skin, and feathers of exotic birds crowned their hair. Symbols of the sun, circles with 3 downward arrows, decorated huts, totems, even shields. The compass grew warm in his pocket. He was taken to the largest hut at the village's center. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and herbs. At the far end sat an elderly man with hair white as bone, his skin painted with swirling golden patterns. He leaned on a carved staff, his eyes piercing despite his age. The warriors pushed Ethan forward, then stepped back. Silence fell. The elder spoke, his voice deep and slow. Zarion. The word meant nothing to Ethan, but the way it was spoken sent a shiver down his spine. The leader of the warriors, Ethan guessed he was the chief, stepped forward, speaking quickly in their language. He gestured toward the compass, then toward Ethan, his tone urgent. The elder extended a hand. One of the warriors yanked the compass from Ethan's grip and placed it in the old man's palm. The elder turned it over, his fingers trembling. His eyes widened as he traced the sun symbol etched into the lid. Finally, he looked up at Ethan and spoke a single word in broken, accented common. Chosen. Ethan blinked. Chosen. Chosen for what? The elder rose slowly, staff tapping against the ground. Long ago, shadow beast rise. Island suffer. Sun compass, bring stranger. Stranger fight, save Zarion. The chief added something in their tongue, his eyes never leaving Ethan. The tribe murmured in agreement, some with awe, others with doubt. Ethan's throat went dry. He was a sailor, not a warrior, not a hero of legends. But here he was, in a hidden tribe on an island that shouldn't exist, being told he was part of some prophecy. Hold on, he said, shaking his head. You've got the wrong man. I'm just trying to get home. The elder stepped closer, eyes blazing with intensity. He pressed the compass back into Ethan's hand. Not wrong man, he said firmly. Storm bring you. Compass choose you. Shadow beast wake soon. If you not fight, all die. The fire crackled between them, throwing shadows on the walls. The weight of his words sank into Ethan's chest. The tribe believed him to be their savior. And in the depths of his gut, Ethan feared they might be right. The trial of courage. The night after the prophecy was spoken, Ethan sat near the tribe's fire. His thoughts tangled like the vines in the jungle. The villagers celebrated around him. Drums pounding, flames crackling, children dancing with painted faces. To them, he was no longer a stranger. He was the chosen one. But Ethan didn't feel chosen. He felt trapped. The chief approached, carrying a wooden bowl filled with steaming broth. He handed it to Ethan, then knelt beside him. Tomorrow, he said in broken common, his deep voice solemn. You prove. Ethan frowned. Prove. Prove what? The chief tapped his chest, then gestured toward the distant cliffs where the jungle gave way to dark stone. Caves of whispers. Trial of courage. Ethan's stomach sank. Of course. Can't be a hero without passing some kind of test, right? The chief didn't smile. By dawn, a crowd gathered at the edge of the cliffs. The cave mouth yawned before Ethan, jagged and black, like the throat of a sleeping beast. A cold wind poured out, carrying with it faint whispers that made his skin crawl. The elder raised his staff. Inside a voices test your mind. Shadows test your soul. Only one with courage return. The tribe chanted, pounding their spears on the ground. Ethan tightened his grip on his torch and compass. The needle glowed faintly, pointing straight into the darkness. He took a deep breath. Here goes nothing, and stepped inside. The air was damp, heavy with the stench of earth. His torch sputtered, casting trembling light across the walls. Strange markings stretched along the stone, spirals, suns, and symbols Ethan didn't understand. Then the voices began. At first they were faint like echoes. But soon they grew louder, overlapping whispers that slithered through the dark. Coward! You will die here. Your crew is gone because of you. Ethan froze. His heart pounded. It's not real, he muttered. Just tricks. He forced himself forward. The tunnel narrowed until he had to crawl. Rocks scraped his hands. Then the ground gave way, revealing a pit writhing with snakes. Their hissing filled the air. Ethan's stomach turned. The only way across was a narrow stone beam, slick with moisture. Perfect, he muttered, gripping the compass in one hand, torch in the other. He set one foot on the beam. It wobbled. The snakes hissed louder, striking at the air. Step by step he inched forward. His heart hammered. The whispers grew crueler, louder. You will fall. You are weak. You are nothing. He gritted his teeth and kept going. Halfway across, his foot slipped. He dropped to his knees, clutching the beam, torch nearly falling into the pit. The snakes surged upward, striking at the flames. Not today, Ethan growled. Slowly, he crawled the rest of the way across. On the other side, the tunnel opened into a cavern with a chasm splitting it in two. A fragile stone bridge stretched across, crumbling with age. Beneath it, blackness so deep it seemed bottomless. Ethan took a breath and stepped onto the bridge. Stones cracked under his weight. The torch flickered, then went out, plunging him into total darkness. Panic clawed at his throat. But then, the compass began to glow softly, casting a golden light. The needle pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding him forward. He followed it step by step, the whispers fading with each stride. His fear melted into determination. Finally, he stumbled out of the cave and into sunlight. The tribe erupted in cheers. The chief clasped his arm in a warrior's grip. The elder lifted his staff high. He has faced the shadows. He is the chosen one. Ethan raised the compass, its glow fading back to ordinary brass. For the first time since the storm, he felt something stir inside him. Not fear, not doubt. Oh. The shadow beast. The ground began to tremble days after Ethan's trial. At first it was faint, just a shiver beneath the earth. But soon the tremors grew stronger, shaking huts, toppling baskets, and sending frightened children into their mothers' arms. From the volcano at the island's heart, black smoke coiled into the sky. The air smelled of ash, sharp and bitter. The tribe gathered in the village square. The chief's voice thundered above the frightened crowd. It wakes. The elder raised his staff, his face grim. Shadow beast rises again. Ethan clenched the compass. The needle spun wildly, glowing hot in his palm. It seemed almost alive, tugging him toward the volcano. Great, he muttered. I pass your test, and now you want me to fight a monster? The chief placed a heavy spear in his hand. Not want. Need. The climb to the volcano was brutal. Lava vents hissed from the ground, releasing waves of heat. The air shimmered and ash fell like black snow. The warriors marched with Ethan, spears ready, their chants steady and fierce. Then the roar came. It wasn't like thunder. It wasn't like an animal. It was deeper, older, filled with rage. The jungle birds scattered. The earth shook. From the mouth of the volcano, the shadow beast emerged. Ethan's breath caught. It was larger than he had imagined, its body long and serpentine, scales black as obsidian. Smoke poured from its nostrils, and glowing red eyes cut through the ash. But it wasn't just a serpent. Its limbs were like a panther's, clawed and powerful, and its body seemed woven of smoke and fire. The warriors faltered, fear in their eyes. Ethan swallowed hard. No pressure, right? The beast struck first. It surged down the slope, jaws gaping wide. Warriors scattered as its tail lashed, crushing trees like twigs. Spears bounced harmlessly off its hide. Compass, don't fail me now, Ethan muttered. The needle pointed not at the beast, but at a glowing crack in the rocks near the crater. He dodged the beast's strike and shouted, "Over here!" The monster lunged after him, hot breath searing his skin. Ethan sprinted toward the crack, leaping over boulders, sliding on ash. He could feel the beast's claws swiping the ground inches behind him. The crack pulsed with golden light, the same light as the compass. Ethan realized with a jolt, the beast's life was bound to the volcano itself. Of course, he panted. Kill the fire at its heart. He skidded to a stop at the edge of the glowing fissure. The beast lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut where he had stood a moment earlier. Ethan dove aside at the last second. The ground beneath the beast's weight crumbled. The crack widened with a roar of molten fury. The shadow beast reared back, but it was too late. The earth gave way, and with a final furious scream, the monster plunged into the lava below. Flames erupted, lighting the sky in a pillar of fire. The ground shook violently, then slowly grew still. Smoke cleared. The volcano rumbled one last time, then fell silent. Ethan lay on the ground, chest heaving, clothes scorched but alive. He raised the compass, its glow fading to a steady, gentle warmth. The shadow beast was gone. The warriors lifted their spears high, voices booming with chants of victory. The chief clasped Ethan's shoulder with pride. The elder raised his staff. "You have done it," he said, his voice trembling with awe. "Zarion is free." Ethan gazed at the horizon, the ash settling like snow around him. Relief surged through him, but so did something else. The storm had brought him here. The compass had guided him. But was this where his journey ended? He wasn't sure. Not yet. Choice. The island was alive again. Where once ash had darkened the sky, sunlight now poured across the land. Flowers burst into bloom as though awakened from a long sleep. Streams that had run thick with soot now sparkled like crystal. The jungle, once trembling in fear, sang with the calls of birds and the chatter of unseen creatures. The shadow beast was gone, and Zarion breathed free. The tribe gathered in the village square that night, fires blazing high, drums pounding in celebration. Children painted their faces with gold, warriors danced with spears, and songs of victory carried into the night air. Ethan sat near the fire, his body sore but his spirit restless. He had fought a monster born of shadow and flame. He had lived through a storm no sailor should have survived. And yet, he felt as though another decision lay before him, heavier than any battle. The chief approached, placing a carved necklace of bone and gold around Ethan's neck. The crowd cheered. "You are Zarion," the chief said in broken common. "You save us. You one of us." The elder hobbled forward, his staff tapping against the earth. He looked at Ethan with eyes that seemed older than the island itself. "Stay," the elder said softly. "This home. Tribe honor you. Tribe need you." The villagers bowed their heads in agreement. They were offering Ethan a place among them, not as a guest but as family. Ethan looked down at the compass in his hand. It still glowed faintly, the needle calm now, no longer pulling him toward danger. For years it had been a mystery, a token from his grandfather with no purpose. Now he knew it had brought him here to this trial, this people, this moment. His heart tugged in two directions. The island was paradise. Here he could live in peace, away from storms, wars, and the endless grind of the sea. But he was a sailor. The ocean still called to him. Adventure was in his blood. That night, he sat at the edge of the shore, waves lapping gently at his feet. The compass rested in his palm, warm and steady. He whispered to the sea, as though it were an old friend. "What now?" The waves whispered back, but gave no answers. At dawn, the tribe gathered once more. Ethan stood before them, necklace around his neck, compass in hand. The chief and elder waited for his choice. Ethan smiled, though his heart ached. "Your island will always be a part of me," he said, placing a hand over his chest. "But the sea is my home." The elder's face softened with understanding. The chief nodded solemnly. The villagers built him a boat of strong wood and palm leaves, small but sturdy, carved with the sun symbol of Zarion. They loaded it with fruit, water, and supplies. Before he left, children tied feathers into his hair, laughing as they blessed his journey. As the sun rose, Ethan pushed the boat into the water. The tribe stood on the shore, chanting his name, their voices carrying across the waves. He raised the compass high, the needle pointing toward the endless horizon. The island grew smaller behind him, fading into mist. The sea stretched wide before him, wild, free, and filled with mysteries yet unseen. Ethan smiled, wind in his hair, the necklace warm against his chest. This adventure was over, but many more awaited.